The city was still, asleep beneath a velvet sky bruised with the color of old smoke. But on the 36th floor of a mirrored high-rise, lights pulsed behind frosted glass, and the hum of broken brilliance echoed through the walls. Inside, Roman Wolf, CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, stood at the edge of a panic he refused to name. His flagship project, years in the making, over $200 million invested, was dying. Error logs poured in like rain through a broken roof. His top engineers had been circling the same bug for weeks, all arriving at the same verdict: untraceable. Roman wasn't used to failure. Not this kind, not this loud, not when the clock was ticking, investors were circling, and everything he'd built was slipping through a crack no one could find. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, 1:53 a.m., mug in hand, cold coffee forgotten. Then, click, 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 typing. He froze. No one else was supposed to be in the penthouse. Not at this hour. Not in that room. He moved toward the hallway. The sound sharpened. Fast, rhythmic, deliberate. Someone was coding. He stepped into the office and stopped. There she was. A young black woman, small-framed, hair braided and tied back, sitting at his desk, face lit by the glow of his private terminal. Her fingers danced across the keyboard like she'd done it 1,000 times. "Excuse me?" His voice sliced the silence in half. She jerked upright, eyes wide. I'm sorry," she stammered, standing so quickly the chair groaned behind her. "I wasn't trying to. I just saw something wrong and I'm sorry." Roman stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You're Amara, right? From cleaning services?" She nodded, shrinking back like a child caught in the wrong room of the wrong house. "You shouldn't be touching that." "I know," she whispered. I saw a recursion loop. I thought maybe I could fix it. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." He said nothing, just stepped past her to the screen. His cursor hovered over the code. His breath stopped. The segment his entire team had failed to untangle. She'd rewritten it. Not just patched it. Cleaned it. Structured it. Made it elegant. He scrolled. Once. Twice. Checked timestamps. Logs. It was real. He turned slowly. "Where did you learn to do this?" She swallowed. "I studied computer science," she said. "A while back." "Where?" "Caltech." She looked down. "I didn't finish. Life got in the way." Roman stared. "You just corrected an error my engineers couldn't fix in 3 weeks. I wasn't trying to interfere. You just saved a $200 million project." Amara blinked. "I did?" He nodded once, still stunned. Silence filled the room. But it was a different silence now. Charged, heavy, unspoken. Amara stepped back. "If you want me gone, I understand." Roman didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, really looked. Not as a maid, not as someone backgrounded into silence, but as something else. Someone else. "You're not just cleaning floors." Amara gave a tight, tired smile. "No," she whispered, "but it's the only job that said yes." Roman exhaled. He watched her leave the room. And for the first time in weeks, the problem on the screen wasn't the one he couldn't stop thinking about. It was the one who just walked away from it. He hadn't slept. Not really. Roman sat alone in his office the next morning, the city below him rising like static. But his thoughts were still trapped in the quiet from last night, the way Amara had backed away from brilliance like she wasn't allowed to claim it. He hadn't imagined it. The logs confirmed it. Her patch wasn't lucky. It was genius. Subtle, scalable, clean. He closed the report his assistant had printed and leaned back. No degree. No job history beyond cleaning services, retail, and a stint as a cashier. A single bright red line stood out. Caltech, computer science, 2 years enrolled. Withdrawn. No reason listed. That told him everything and nothing. Later that evening, He spotted her in the hallway, kneeling beside the staircase, scrubbing the marble edge with quiet precision. Her movements were measured, not robotic, but intentional, almost graceful, like she didn't want the floor to feel neglected. "Amara," he said. She looked up, startled. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded, slowly rising to her feet, wiping her hands on a cloth. "How long have you been doing this?" "Cleaning?" she asked. "On and off, a few years, since I left school." "What happened?" Roman asked. His tone wasn't cold, just still. Amara hesitated. "My dad passed when I was 16. My mom, she's diabetic, lost mobility after a stroke. I tried working part-time and studying full-time, but..." She trailed off. It wasn't sustainable. Roman didn't speak for a long moment. "You shouldn't be doing this." Amara let out the smallest laugh, not bitter, not angry, just tired. "I know," she said, "but bills don't disappear just because you're good at something." There was no self-pity in her voice, just fact. That night, after she left, Roman set a trap. He opened a dormant folder from an abandoned project and inserted a logic flaw. It wasn't obvious, the kind of bug that would only surface under layered conditions. He left the file half open on the corner of his desk, and waited. The next morning, it was back in place. Neater. Solved. Next to it, on a torn slip of paper in faint pencil, it read, "Fixed recursive input conflict. Hope that's okay. No name, no noise, just brilliance. Again." Roman stared at the note for a full minute. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't trying anything. She was just helping. Silently. From behind a uniform, no one bothered to look beyond. From that moment forward, he started watching. Not with suspicion, with awe. The way she adjusted the antique wall clock in his hallway when it ran 2 minutes fast. The way she reorganized his shelves alphabetically, by subject first, then by author, like a librarian with a silent system. The way she paused at the photo of his late wife every time she dusted that frame, brushing it gently like it mattered more than the glass. She was invisible to most people who walked those floors. But Roman had begun to see her. And once he did, he couldn't unsee her. He noticed the way she avoided rooms when meetings were happening. The way she never wore headphones, always alert, never assuming she was allowed to relax. The way she carried herself, like someone trained for brilliance but punished for reaching toward it. That night, he whispered aloud in the dark, "You don't belong in that uniform." But he knew Amara would never be the one to take it off. If anything were going to change, it had to start with him. Roman stood at the head of the boardroom table, fingers laced, jaw set. The air was sharp, cold from the AC but thick with impatience. Around him, 12 executives sat shifting in polished chairs, half listening, half suspecting. The quarterly update was supposed to be routine, but nothing about this project had been routine. The once failing flagship was now alive, functioning, stable, outperforming benchmarks. Their $200 million disaster had somehow become their biggest success, and no one could explain how. Roman had submitted the logs himself, but the code didn't match his voice. Not in tone, not in rhythm. It was cleaner, calmer, brilliant without arrogance. "Mr. Wolf," one board member began, voice clipped. "We appreciate your discretion, but someone is rewriting the backbone of our system, and we'd like to know who." Roman said nothing. The man folded his arms. "This company doesn't run on ghosts." A murmur rippled through the room. Roman exhaled. Slowly. Controlled. "I'll arrange it," he said finally. He didn't sleep that night. Not because he was unsure of her, but because he knew the room wasn't ready for her. Because when Amara walked into a space like that, people wouldn't just see intelligence. They'd see what they expect to see. The uniform, the skin, the girl they'd never noticed. The next morning, Amara showed up early. Black slacks, plain shirt, her hair tied neatly. She walked past the glass-paneled atrium with a mop bucket in one hand and quiet focus in her eyes. She didn't know. Roman had asked her to tidy the executive floor before a special guest arrived. That's all he said. But when she entered the grand hall, the lights dimmed. A spotlight turned on, and Roman stepped onto the stage. "I'd like to begin today's session," he said, "with a story." The room fell still. A few months ago, our company was facing the greatest failure in its history. We threw money at the problem, brought in experts, spent weeks running in circles. He paused, letting the weight sit. And then, a fix appeared. Not from the top floor, not from the engineers, from someone no one had expected, someone no one had even seen. He turned his head. The spotlight shifted. Amara froze, mop still in hand. A few heads turned. A few whispers hissed through the dark. Roman extended his arm. "Would you join me, Amara?" She didn't move at first, just stared, wide-eyed, as though her bones had turned to stone. Then, slowly, she walked. The sound of her shoes on the polished floor was deafening. Roman offered his hand. She took it, trembling. "This is Amara Jackson," he said. "She came here to clean our floors. Instead, she rewrote the very code that saved this company." Silence. Then a single clap, then another, then a wave. A full standing ovation. Amara looked like she might faint. "I wasn't trying to... I didn't mean to," she started, voice breaking. Roman gently handed her the mic. "You don't need to explain," he said. "Just let them see you." She stared at him, blinking fast. "I never thought I'd be in a room like this again." "You never should have left it," he replied softly. She turned back to the crowd. For the first time, they were all looking at her. Not because she was a maid, but because she was the reason they still had jobs. The morning after the applause, Amara didn't check her phone. She didn't need to. The buzz started before sunrise. Emails from universities, interview requests, code offers from startups she'd once begged for internships at. She ignored them all. Her hands still smelled faintly of bleach. By noon, her mother had already received flowers from someone she'd never met. By evening, the care center called. "Ms. Jackson," the nurse said gently, "your mother's new specialist is arriving today, and she'll have full-time support, all covered, private sponsorship." Amara froze mid-step. I didn't arrange that. It's been approved." She hung up slowly, heart pounding. That night she stormed into Roman's office without knocking. He looked up, not surprised, but he didn't smile. "You paid for it," she said. He didn't deny it. "She deserves the best," he replied softly. "You should have told me." Her voice cracked. "Why would you do this?" Roman stepped around the desk. "Because for the first time in your life, you don't have to choose between being brilliant and being a daughter." She opened her mouth, but no words came. "And because," he added, voice lower now, "you saw me long before I saw myself." The silence between them filled like water. Dense, deep, unspoken. Later that night she found a box on her doorstep. Inside, a brand new laptop. Lightweight, sleek, state-of-the-art. Resting on the keyboard was a folded card, handwritten. "This is the first keyboard to ever save $200 million. Thought it belonged to you." She didn't cry at first. But when she touched the keys, her fingers trembled. Not from exhaustion, but from hope. 2 days later, Roman found her seated in the R&D lab, not cleaning, not hiding, but reviewing a junior dev's architecture flow with calm precision. The girl beside her listened, eyes wide, scribbling notes as Amara softly explained recursive traps like she was teaching someone to breathe. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't own the room. But the room moved with her. Roman stood watching from the doorway. She belonged, not because she was finally allowed in, but because no one could justify her being left out. That afternoon, he approached her with a sheet of paper. "You're speaking with me next week." Amara blinked. "Speaking?" "At the West Coast Innovation Summit." She nearly laughed. Roman, I've never spoken at anything like that. I've never even been invited to one. He smiled. Then let's change what invited means. She hesitated. What if I say something wrong? Then we fix it, he said. Together. She looked at the paper. Her name, Amara Jackson, printed just below his. Later, in the quiet of her small apartment, she stood in front of the mirror, practicing how to say her name without lowering her voice, practicing how to own it. Not like an apology, like it was hers. And when the night fell silent again, she whispered one thing aloud. I think I'm ready. The night of the West Coast Innovation Summit, the auditorium shimmered like it had something to prove. Gold light spilled from chandeliers. Cameras lined the back wall. Rows of sharp suits and expensive shoes filled the seats, all waiting for the next big name. Amara stood backstage, alone in a navy blue dress. Her braids were pulled back, simple and elegant. No makeup artist, no personal stylist, just her, holding a flash drive and a tremor that wouldn't leave her hands. She wasn't here to impress. She was here to be heard. Roman stepped onto the stage first, met by polite applause. The screen behind him glowed white. For years, we've defined innovation by noise, he said, by volume, by titles, by rooms full of people who look and sound the same. He paused. But the greatest innovation I've ever witnessed came from silence, from someone no one invited in. He turned. Please, welcome, Amara Jackson. There was no drum roll, just breathe. As Amara stepped into the light, the room fell still. She didn't look like what they expected. She never had. She stood at the mic, closed her eyes for half a second, and exhaled. Then she spoke. I don't have credentials, she said softly. I don't have a degree. I don't have a resume that makes you lean forward. She looked out over the crowd. But I have something else. I have a mind that never stops solving, even when no one asked it to. A shift. People leaned in. I used to believe brilliance needed permission, that it had to come with a label or a plaque or a voice that sounded a certain way. Her voice broke, just slightly. But it doesn't. Sometimes it sounds like someone cleaning a room they don't belong in. Sometimes it looks like someone fixing code they weren't supposed to touch. She paused. And sometimes, it's just someone refusing to disappear. The room held its breath. I didn't save a company, she said. I just did what I knew how to do, quietly, because that's the only way the world ever let me. Then she smiled. Not wide, not polished, just real. But someone saw me anyway. She glanced toward Roman. And for a moment, the distance between stage and floor vanished. The applause was hesitant at first, not because they doubted her, but because they were trying to understand what they had just felt. Then it came. Full. Rising. True. Not out of surprise, but out of recognition. That night, as the lights dimmed and the summit crowd filtered out, Amara stood at the edge of the stage, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or vanish again. Roman stepped beside her. You didn't just speak, he said quietly. You changed the room. She looked up. Do you think they saw me? He smiled. I think for the first time, they listened. A month later, at the Innovators of the Future Gala, her name was called again. She wore the same dress, no glitter, no cameras followed her in. But when she crossed the stage to accept the award for Emerging Voice in Tech, she didn't tremble. Not this time. I'm not here because I was finally given permission, she said into the mic. I'm here because I stopped waiting for it. And this time, when she stepped off the stage, it wasn't Roman waiting. It was a hallway full of young developers, some black, some brown, some too quiet, some too unsure, waiting to say, I didn't know I could. And now, they did.